Hello, welcome to Wondermous. My name is Merikay Hunt, and I'm your podcast host. And today we have a special guest, Eric Collett. Eric, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about you and your background?
Thanks so much, Mary Kay. It's great to be with you. After a 16-year successful career running assisted living and memory care communities, people were asking me to get on stages and to train other professionals how to do the work that I was doing, how to have success with people that had really difficult neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. And there were so many opportunities there that combined with some personal situation led me to jump ship and create my own business back in 2016. So A Mind for All Seasons is getting close to 10 years old, and it's been
Yay.
quite a ride. And along the way, I never could have predicted what we would become. We not only train family and professional caregivers how to do their work in new and exciting ways, but more than anything, we've developed powerful tools to help people improve symptoms of dementing illnesses. And that naturally led to helping other people with their brain health. So now we work with entrepreneurs and executives and professional athletes and everyday Joes and Janes that want to get their brains better, people that have had car accidents and need to get their brain to a better place, or maybe they've had anxiety or depression throughout their whole life and they want to improve. So we're able to help a lot of different groups of people while also focusing on our core market of assisted living and memory care communities and giving them powerful tools to help their residents reverse their symptoms.
You know, to step away from the familiar and what you know and have the courage to launch and start your own company, that takes a lot of strength and mindset. What were some dynamics involved that really helped you lean into that opportunity?
Hmm, that's a really good question. Um, there was a lot that converged. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, and we used to talk about my dad's company around the dinner table and throw out different ideas. So it's a little bit in my blood. And I'm the oldest of five boys, and three of my siblings are entrepreneurs themselves.
Mm,
So I think part of it was in the blood, but I was seeing an opportunity long before I took the flying leap. And there was one pivotal moment that I really give credit to my wife for. Um, she has a rare eye disease that had progressed to the point that she had a 10-degree visual field and she had to quit
wow.
driving back when she was 35. And at
Mm,
that time, none of our four kids had a driver's license. So I was the sole driver. I was on call 24/7. I was stressed to the max, to be honest.
sure.
I loved my work, but it was really difficult and I had no semblance of balance. And there was a pivotal moment where I was driving my family to the elementary school where our youngest daughter was going to be in a play, and the phone rang. And it
Mm,
was a staff member from the memory care community I was running. And she was distressed. And she went on to talk about a resident who was actively dying kind of unexpectedly. She'd just taken a turn for the worse.
right.
That lady's family was there. They were in distress. They needed support. Long story short, I was the guy that needed to go there and support that family. So I
Mm,
dropped my family off at the school, not knowing how they were going to get home. And my wife just said, "It's okay. We'll figure it out." And I spent the next 15 minutes driving to the facility feeling like the worst husband and father
mm,
imaginable. And then I spent the next few hours feeling like the worst administrator possible because I resented being there. I didn't want to be with
wow.
that family in that moment because my heart was back at the school with my little girl.
Sure.
And I got home that night after midnight. Everybody was asleep. And I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize myself. I
Wow.
was 30 pounds overweight. I hadn't read a book in years. I hadn't exercised in a long time.
Mm,
None of that is me.
right.
And I realized in that moment, I'm going to die an early death if I keep this up. And so the next morning, I sat down with my wife, Amy, and said, "Honey, I have to make a change." And she said, "Well, you've been talking about doing consulting work and you're already getting asked to train other people and you have a great opportunity. What is stopping you?"
Mm,
And I said, "Well, when am I going to have time to start a business?" Thinking that I've got to moonlight and somehow squeeze one
sure.
more thing in. And that's when she just smiled and she looked at me and she said, have you ever thought that maybe you need to quit your day job so you have time to start a company? And that was
Wow.
that was the moment, Mary Kay. That was
Oh,
like,
your aha moment. I love it.
"Oh!" Yeah, and, literally 3 days later, I gave notice, and there's a
Feel like I
lot of
need to
water
give
under the
Amy a
bridge,
high five right now.
right? I'm so grateful, and she would tell you, "Man, I didn't know that I was saying something that earth-shattering in that moment." She said, "If I'd known how hard it would be to start a business and to grow it for almost a decade, I probably wouldn't have said what I did at that time." But
Mhm.
she had courage, and I felt like if she had that kind of faith in me, that I could have that kind of faith in my opportunity, and so I bet on myself, and
I love it.
I'm so thankful that I did.
Well, and when you were sharing that story, I actually got chill bumps. And it's powerful when we have that catalyst moment. And sometimes we just need somebody to breathe a little life or to breathe some encouragement in it for that validation. And I'm excited for you. So it also makes me think of learning lessons, right? And my hope and prayer in this, Eric, is that we're going to inspire somebody with this message to go for it and to start their own gig or to go for that promotion or to reach a little higher. So what were some good learning lessons that you experienced when you first started?
There's so many lessons, but I think one of the most important was to look back on the 16 years that I had spent working in healthcare up to that
Mhm.
point, and realizing that all of those experiences were just education. They were like paying tuition to learn the skills and to become the person that I needed to become to do everything that I would do in the future.
Mm.
And I think about growing up and having a moment when I was about 17 years old, and I was a little bit distressed because I was a straight A student and I was offered an academic scholarship to the University of Utah. And I
Mhm.
thought I wanted to be a reconstructive plastic surgeon because that's what my next door neighbor did. And I used to go to his office and look at his slides, and I thought, well, it has art and science, and that's really cool. And I had a lot of people talking to me saying, Eric, you should be a doctor. And initially, I did start school intending to become a doctor, but it was because I forgot something that happened when I was 17. And I was so worried about the future. And I talked to my mom, who's always been one of my biggest cheerleaders.
Mm.
I said, Mom, what am I going to do? Because I'm so interested in a lot of different areas in life.
Right.
And she thought for a while and she looked at me and said, Eric, I honestly think that the job that you will end up doing that will most impact the world has not yet been invented. So
Whoa.
I think you need to just focus on learning, developing skills, um, do everything that you're doing as well as you can do it, and try to learn along the way. And I
Mm.
think when I first started A Mind for All Seasons, and I actually took 2 or 3 months off
Mhm.
after I quit my day job to just decompress and to
Sure.
think and to have time to stare out the window and to get my health right and to do all the things that would allow me to start a company. And in that process of reflection, I realized that all of it had been education. All of it had been building the skill set that I needed to be able to do something unique in the world. And
Mhm.
I've been inventing something ever since that really hasn't existed.
Mm. Well, so 2 things are coming to my heart about that. One is I wanna help people understand exactly what a Mind for All Seasons is. And then also I wanna talk about, leaders that potentially have influenced you or professionals, that have really helped you create your persona of who you are as a leader. So first, let's start with the Mind for All Seasons. Describe a little bit more about the processes and what your company offers.
Yeah. Um, there's not time to go into all of the research behind what we do, but I will
Mhm.
sum it up by saying in the last 15 or so years, researchers at places like UCLA and Weill Cornell University and Stanford, et cetera, have really come to recognize that brain health is not about one thing. It's about many different things. So I want to give you a simple analogy. Imagine that your brain health is like a boat. And if things aren't good, it's like that ship is taking on water, and you notice, hey, we're not riding so high in the water, we're not moving at top speed, we're taking on some water. the whole world wants to know, hey, what's the problem and what's the pill that I need to take to fix that? But they're not recognizing that there are about 100 potential holes sinking the ship. And nobody has just one hole when there's a brain health problem. They might have 15, 20, 30 things going wrong. And if I was to sum up what we do at A Mind for All Seasons to help people improve their brain health, it's to measure the potential holes in the boat in a blood test and by
Mm,
looking at health history and the kinds of things that people have been exposed to. And we identify the specific holes that an individual has. We write a treatment summary that we call a roadmap report that tells them how to patch the holes. And usually that's a combination of lifestyle factors
right.
and supplementing things they're deficient in, sometimes medication changes as well.
Mhm.
Um, and we help them patch the holes in the boat. And then we remeasure and we look at things like what's happened to their cognitive scores? What's happened to their blood work? Are they doing better? Are they observing that they're doing better as well? And usually we can help someone like an entrepreneur executive improve their cognitive scores 20 to 30% in just a few months by
Wow.
doing the fundamental things that make brains work really well. And when it comes to Alzheimer's patients, we don't have a cure, but we can prevent Alzheimer's disease. Most of the top Alzheimer's researchers now recognize that it's largely preventable. We should not have so many cases.
Mm,
And so I would do anything possible to save people from going down that road. But if they're already having symptoms, often we can get some reversal just by focusing on the potential holes in the boat and identifying what they have and doing something about it.
mm. I like that analogy because and the visual on that, because the threshold of the vessel, we can only take on so much water, right? Or so many
Yeah.
holes.
Right.
So I think inspirational leadership is something that I've always been interested in. So who are some influences for you? I know certainly you had your mother and you've got your siblings that are in the entrepreneurs, but who are some other leaders that have played a role into your success?
Yeah, there's a lot, and many of them I've become acquainted with by reading. I'm a pretty voracious reader, but there was a time shortly after I started my company that I found myself sitting at a healthcare association convention where I was one of the speakers, and then I just attended other sessions.
Mhm.
And a gentleman named Tony Decker from Washington State, who's been a healthcare professional for many years, spoke. And at the time, he was getting a master's in leadership. And so he was just reading tons and tons of stuff on leadership. And I was interested to see how he would sum things up. And he said some things that I've never forgotten, and they really have affected the way that I've tried to influence organizations ever since. He said, I really think that everything about leadership boils down to three key things that if you're going to help people be intrinsically motivated, if they're
Mhm.
going to choose to show up because they want to and they're going to do the right kinds of things, um, that these three conditions have to be present. Number one is that people need to feel safe
Mm,
because the threat detection system overrides everything else. And
right.
so if someone, for whatever reason, doesn't feel safe in the organization or in the relationship, that's going to dictate how things go more than anything else. And so I heard that and I thought, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
I understand fight or flight and what happens when we're triggered. The second thing is people need to have maximum freedom within established boundaries.
Mm,
And I started thinking of analogies for that. And the simple one that comes to mind is just driving.
yeah.
Imagine how awful it would be if there were no rules of the road or if nobody followed the rules of the road. I actually have a brother who's um, a Navy dentist, and he's stationed in Bahrain right now. And he said, Eric,
Wow.
it's crazy because so many of the people that have immigrated there from other parts of the world come from areas where there are no traffic rules. And he said, I knew that I was going to be in a federally designated combat zone, but I didn't realize that the biggest risk to my life would be my commute to work every day and back. Because it's insanity. People are weaving in and out and cutting across multiple lanes
Oh,
of traffic road.
heavens.
So humans need to be able to exercise our agency and to do as much for ourselves as possible. But if there are
Right.
no boundaries, if there are no rules, then we feel totally insecure,
Mm,
untethered, and we don't even know what success looks like,
mm,
which breeds a lot of distrust for leaders.
sure.
So then the third thing that Tony Decker said is that people need to be needed and necessary to the outcome. People intuitively know if what they're doing doesn't actually matter or if the buck
Right.
doesn't actually stop with them. And as I listened to him, I thought maybe that's why it was so easy for frontline staff to call off and say, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to be at work today. I'm not feeling well."
Right.
But if it was me and my license was on the line and nobody else was saying yes, I'd get up in the middle of the night and go into work and do it because somebody's got to do it because I was actually needed and necessary. And that started me thinking, well, what could I do to help people have greater genuine responsibility where I recognize that if there's no possibility of failure, you cannot actually have success.
Mm.
You have to be able to fail if you're going to be successful.
Absolutely. Safety, freedom, and tied to the outcome. And it's interesting because the call before you and I started our podcast was with a former colleague who is now trying to help other people get their business started. And when she was describing the situation, I thought, there's an obstacle there. There's a mindset issue. There's a habit or a system that's not in place. And having those conversations with people to really discern what's the block, what's the roadblock. And I think that's what's inspiring to me about your organization is the reversal, the healing that can take place in the mind so that we can be our best. So what continues to drive your passion for your business?
There's nothing, Mary Kay, that drives it more than seeing people get their lives back. Um, one of our early clients came because her dad saw us doing work with dementia patients and reversing symptoms, and he called in distress one day and said, "You got to help my daughter. She's depressed and suicidal, and we've been to every doctor imaginable, and we've tried all sorts of medications, and nothing is helping."
Wow.
And long story short, we dug into the root causes, and she had undiagnosed post-concussion syndrome from playing concussive sports in high school, so we were able to help her with that. And then ultimately, a year later, she was back in school and doing better, but still cycling in and out of a difficult week or 2, about once a month. And it was frustrating. We couldn't hardly figure it out. And then one day she was on a telemedicine consult with my business partner. Um, and Randy looked at her and said, "Well, it seems like things are off this week and you're not doing as well." And she said, "No, I'm not. And on top of it, I have cold sores again." And he said, "What? What
Hmm.
what are you talking about? How did I not know that you had cold sores?" And she said, "Well, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Lots of people get cold sores, and I just have some valcyclovir that I use every time I feel I'm coming on, and sometimes they're in my nose and you can't see them." And Randy said, "Wait a minute. Did you know that a large percentage of people who die with Alzheimer's and donate their brains to science are found to have herpes simplex virus living in the brain? They get a leaky
Wow.
blood-brain barrier, the virus gets in the brain, and every time the immune system turns on, energy production turns down." He
Hmm.
said, I would bet that you have that virus also in your brain, and every time it flares and your immune system can't stay ahead of it, you get mental health symptoms." She said, "Well, okay, how do we test that? What could we do about it?" And he said, "I want to put you on valcyclovir every day for the next 12 months and see what happens."
Wow.
So he did. Long story short, her mental health totally leveled out. I
Hmm.
attended her wedding a couple of years later.
Aw.
She's having a baby here in a few days. It totally changed things. And
Hmm.
when I see situations like that, and I get to watch things like that in people's lives every single day, that is so motivating. And people ask me, "Well, Eric, like, when are you going to sell your business or when are you going to retire?" And my answer honestly is, I hope I get to do this work to the day that I die because I
Wow.
can't possibly help enough people improve their
Mm.
brain health.
And my hope is that you create some sort of legacy so this just continues to live on and the work is sustainable and for generations to come. And so how can people get more information? What's the best way for them to do that?
I'll give you two easy things that you can do. The first one is just text the word optimize to 72000, and you'll get a series of really short videos that my business partner and I put together to explain more about what we do and our process and so forth. And you'll
Mhm.
learn a lot along the way. The other is to just go to amindforallseasons.com. And we have resources there both for individuals and for professionals. And there's a lot of things that you can play around with there: newsletter, daily video, etc. Lots of cool stuff to look at.
That sounds awesome. Eric, thank you for joining us today on Wondermous. And I wish you the absolute best for the future of your business and for making a positive and purposeful impact in the lives of others.
Thanks so much, Mary Kay. It's great to be with you.
Again, my name is Merikay Hunt, founder of Coach MK Companies, and we are grateful that you've invested some time to hear inspirational leadership stories from these amazing people transforming healthcare. If you'd like to learn more about Coach MK, visit coachmkay.com. Blessings to you and make every day count.